All right, now we are live. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Today, I have Olga Maydanchik. Super excited to have her here. I came across Olga's posts on LinkedIn and reached out to her. We've had a really fascinating conversation that I had to bring her to the live show. So, thanks, Olga, for joining us today.
Hello, how are you guys?
So, yeah, I know that you've served as a chief data quality person in a lot of the CDO offices, especially in financial services in the past, and you even have a course. Can you tell us a little bit more about yourself or the audience that is not necessarily familiar with you?
Absolutely. I'm a practitioner, educator, and evangelist in the field of data management, information management. And I have a couple sweet spots. One of them is data quality, the other one is metadata management. However, I'm very versed in like the whole program setup. And the reason I'm excited about that data quality, metadata management, data modeling, MDM, and everything, they are so connected together. And I've been fortunate enough to work on a larger programs that actually do explore those connections. So I worked at Citibank, I worked at Deutsche Bank, I worked at AIG, pretty much every single company that was bailed out after 2008. So I'm very active in the Enterprise Data Management Council, and I participated in the original design of a data management capability assessment model, DCAM, that was like 10 or more years ago. And right now I'm still working in a different group, and we're working on a version number 3. So I'm very well positioned to think about the frameworks and how the things need to be done and how the companies could be performing their assessments on what they are actually doing and where they are. So
Amazing. Thank you, Olga. I think just overall, because like today our conversation is going to be more dense, I would say. It's not just gonna be our conversation. You're gonna have a couple examples that you might share. So uh those who are listening in, I want to make sure that we can also get your questions covered. So feel free to comment, ask questions anytime during the show, and towards the end of the show, we will bring out to try to answer all of your questions. So, yeah, let's get started. The first question that I have for you is I would like to discuss and define both the role that data quality and active metadata plays. So where I came up with this topic is because Selectstar, our company, is in the space of active metadata. We take stale metadata and process them, make it something that you can consume to use for data operations or data governance. And it is also the metadata that we continuously update. And we see a lot of places where this can be useful, especially for data quality. So I would love that, given that you have a whole course that you're teaching on data quality and also about metadata management. We'd love to have you for the listeners, the main overall fundamental of how you would define active metadata and its role of enhancing data quality today.
yes. So first of all, let's talk about terminology. I like to use two words: passive metadata and active metadata. So passive metadata refers to the metadata that is collected but not actually actively used. If you think about it, it's a description of a table or description of a field, could be used like once in a blue moon by someone who need to, look it up. Active metadata is actually, it's not like a type of metadata. We are not talking about that's a business or technical or operational. It's not a type. It's actually a way of using metadata to power down other systems. So if you like think about the analogy, you have like thermometer and you have the smart thermostat in your house. So thermometer is literally, you can just like look at the temperature and that's it. And then you have to make manual decision what, how to dress up and whatever it is, open the window, close the window, something like that. With the smart thermostat, right, you measure the temperature and all of a sudden this information kicks up the system and the system maintains this temperature, right, some other processes. So active metadata is not something that just like sits there. It is a possibility of using the metadata as active, as much as possible. Now, passive metadata is not bad. It's still, it's still good, right? And the way it is also used to convert the passive metadata to the active metadata for other usages.
So if I understand correctly, it sounds like active metadata is not just the data. There's actually a process or some function or program that reacts based on the metadata.
Absolutely. Yes. That it's power of the whole system. And there are like multiple examples. We could go through those examples later on. Yes.
Wonderful. Tell us now then a little bit more about how active metadata can be used for data quality. I know that there is the overall metadata management process. Everyone knows how, you want to manage metadata, you want to do data governance. Let's catalog all your data and classify it and put policies and access control. That's not the way that active metadata is being utilized, right?
Actually, it is. Access control is very much active metadata. If it's policy-based access control, it's very much active metadata because think about it. You add, let's say, a new field to the table, or you add a whole new table. And access control policies absolutely need to know how to treat this particular table or this particular new field. So the way how the whole system works is you add this new field, you immediately call the whatever classifying engine that classifies this metadata, and let's say it classifies it as sensitive, or it classifies it it's this is sales territory or something like that, and then it's immediately feed it back to the access management system, where access management decides whether you in particular role is allowed to see this data, etc. So in the traditional metadata management, you wouldn't be able to do so because there is always a delay between adding and adding the field, let's say by the time you release it to production, and then adding information into the data catalog, and catalog feeds it to the access management system. This is traditional one. There is a delay. So during this delay, if someone needs to access to the system, and I'm not talking about person, I'm talking about both human users and computer users. Without active metadata, this access management wouldn't know whether to access it and how to treat it. So it's actually very much active, to your point.
Got it. So it's not about just the policies, it's about the applying the policies in time.
Yes.
And that is the part that is active
Yes.
versus passive.
So when we are talking about active metadata, one of the most important way of thinking it, you cannot have active metadata without active metadata management. If before you were relying on the manual updates, annotations, and everything by data stewards or other users of a system, in active metadata, you absolutely have to replace everything with automated processes, whether it's classification that has to be automated or whether it's anything else. And you can't rely on manual updates because they are slow. APIs are probably the better choice. So every time something changes, the data changes, you have to immediately reflect that in your metadata changes. There shouldn't be any delay. It's kind of like almost real time.
Yep. That's a really good point. Sorry, did you want to share a slide on this or?
Actually, if you want to, I could talk about this. And let's say Yeah. Do you see this slide? Oh, I could do that. Present. Yeah. Do you see it right now?
Yep.
Yeah. So this is a very traditional metadata management process where you have someone like a domain expert goes talk to data engineer and say, hey, I really need to request some changes. This guy deploys things to the production, and then several things happen manually. So first of all, this guy notifies data steward about the changes, right? And the data steward, again, with some kind of delay, connects data catalog, which is pulls the data from the real thing, right, to the catalog, and then person perform annotations. So the consumer's data and metadata always have them out of sync, because if you think about the timeline, it does take time. So in order, this is traditional metadata management process. What we are saying that all of those errors have to be replaced by real-time APIs. And that's mean that we are not actually pulling the data to the data catalog from the data storage, but rather we are pushing every time something changes, it has to update it over there. So that's just basically the difference between traditional metadata management process and the active metadata process.
Got it. Do you have a different diagram for active metadata management process then?
Well, I actually put the information on LinkedIn. So this is my famous metadata architecture. I put it together with my colleague Dave Wells, and we were brainstorming how can we do it. So as you could see, there are tons of errors literally between every single piece of metadata. So in the active metadata management, those errors have to be APIs. So you cannot rely on the manual updates, pretty much never ever. So
Got it. So maybe if you can go back to the previous slide, you mentioned this the overall process of, hey, this data needs to be changed or this documentation needs to be updated. All of those will still happen, like, and the roles of data stewards and domain experts will still be there. It's really it's the steps of the process may be the same, but it just happens more instantly and in a more automated fashion.
Yes and no, but when I say no, it's actually a little bit different. So when we're saying that steward performs annotation and data catalog, right? This information, new annotations are fed into the classification, automated classification engine as one more point for machine learning program to learn and to perform better classifications. And based on that, the classification will happen better. So basically, this is still the process is happening. However, on top of this process, you probably have another process that, hey, this annotation will be fed as yet one more point of reference to teach the model to do something, right? So that's kind of how it is. So that's
Got
for
it.
the future, yeah.
Okay. Well, very well then. Sorry, I'm just looking. So that's all great. Now I would love to get your examples of active metadata.
Okay.
You mentioned about, yeah, there are, because even the passive metadata, there are so many variety of metadata that we look at. And I would love to have you walk us through the examples of active metadata and where in data quality they are being used today.
Okay. So you know what? Why don't I share my screen again, and why don't we talk about one of the most used case right now, which is a machine learning data classification. So typically, how does it work? So you prepare the training data, and training data is nothing more but the links between your business glossary and your physical data elements. Basically, you are saying that, hey, this field is actually connected to this business term. And then you train your model similar to like a child is learning. So for example, when there is a little child, you show him an apple, and then the child is pointing to the ball and saying, hey, that's apple. But you're saying, no, 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 it's not apple, it's a ball. And then the child points to the tomato and you're saying ball. No, it's not the ball, it's a tomato. So that's the same way how you teach the child, you can train your model to recognize what those fields represent. And in order for model to recognize it, on the back end, you do the typical profiling, which is basically collecting tons of statistics about the field. And one of my friends, an early creator of a data catalogs that used to be the what it used to be called waterline data. Now I think like Hitachi bought them. So Alex Garelik, he named that thing as a column fingerprinting. So what he is saying that each column has its own fingerprint that is unique to this particular column. That's mean it's the patterns are the same, you know, and the distribution of all values is the same. So if this program sees some kind of like patterns somewhere in different table, different data store, that you still can say, hey, this is actually, you know, this field represent, you know, plan numbers or something like that, right? So we are not talking about just sensitive, non-sensitive, PII, non-PII. We are talking about the fact that we can classify pretty much every single field in every single table as the, you know, as a content based, right? But for that you need to have like knowledge graph, you need to have good dictionary and this training thing. And after that you do adjust, and the point is that there is a feedback loop. Every time the machine program defines something and say, hey, that's this field is a plan ID, you have to say yeah or no. And machine is basically the program teaches itself and be better and better and better. So when we are talking about those manual processes that we just discussed, that the data steward annotates it, you think about it as just one more input to the ML feedback loop to make the existing program better. And once you toward the program, once it's working, then you could literally execute it every time you put the data somewhere. So for example, you're creating the data lake. As soon as the data comes to the data lake, before even any consumption or anything, the first thing you do, you classify it so that the people could find data better, better, and better. So, and then imagine this beautiful world, which actually doesn't exist right now, but you know, we are trying to create it, where every single thing is classified. And now we could talk about the killer use case for active metadata is creating of a semantic data quality rule. So think about, let's just talk about terminology, because first of all, it's different everywhere, and I don't like hanging up on any particular way how people are talking about. So I personally like to talk about business rule. They're kind of logical rules, something that everyone could understand, and that basically plain English, employer birth date must exist or something like that. But this logical rule could be coded as many, many rule instances. And those rule instances actually very specific to where the data are stored, like tables and columns and fields, etc. So they are defined on a physical level. But imagine that we classified our data and we know in every single data store where our birth date is. So what we could do, we could, instead of manually creating those rules, we could just say, hey, create this rule for the employee birth date. It's beautiful. You don't have to do anything. You could ask the machine to create it, execute it, etc. Why is it active? Because you are using your classification, which is metadata, and you are putting it to usage of creating the data quality rule, executing, and I'm going to talk about what we do with that later. You can even do much more difficult rules. For example, the rule when compares two things, let's say your hire date might be after your birth date, right? So you can, in a sense, now you're talking about two field classified. And, you know, again, you could create these rules. You could create many, many even like more difficult rules. But another beautiful thing is you could actually clean up your metadata. For example, what you have to say is that if my field as the birth date, it must have a PII sensitive tag. So you could create the data quality rule on your metadata. Basically, if it's an employee birth date, then you have to do the tag. And after that, you can create automatic data cleansing rule. Basically, you could say, hey, add the tag to every field, which is employer birth date. So again, you are actively using your metadata to other things. So now the
Sorry,
point.
can we just pause for a second if we
Yeah,
can go back?
yeah.
So I think this is a very interesting case. And so from here, what is considered as active metadata in this example? And what part would be the active metadata management side?
Okay. So active metadata would be the tag for the employee birth date. So
Mm-hmm.
imagine you created a new table completely with no one knows what's in this table. You run your classification engine that we just discussed on this new table, and you classify this as the birth date, right? So it's a new piece of data, metadata that you came up with. And then you're saying, hey, this birth date also must have a sensitivity tag. You put the tag on it. And this active metadata is fed to your, let's say, data access system where you know how to access. At the same time, it's also created data quality rule, and you can check that this birthday is indeed correct, and all other stuff, right? So
Yeah, so the active metadata in this case are the tags, the semantic tags.
yes,
And the active metadata management is the definition of that role and the processes, the underlying program that tags them and maintains the tag.
yes, yes.
Great.
So other systems
Um,
kind of like depend on that. It's like your access depend on that, your data quality rule depends on that, your resolution depend on that. So it's one depend on the other, depend on the other, and all of it in automated manner.
got it. I think you also had like a list of active metadata examples. Is that
Yeah, I
something you
do,
can go
but
over?
and we could talk about it. You know
Or
what?
yeah, I'm sure there we can talk
So
about it forever.
we can talk about it forever, so feel free to stop me. So one of the active metadata usage is not just to detect your errors, but literally to resolve them. And the way how you perform resolution is you kind of analyze this whole list of errors, of thousands and thousands of errors, and you divide them into the groups. The errors are not random because they are created by faulty pipelines, by somebody putting some default value when they don't have a real value, etc. And usually that's a situation when not one record is affected, but rather than like many records are affected. So idea is to find those big groups, and then you could figure out for each group what's the problem was and fix it up. Ideally, you want to fix it also in automated manner. Now, before active metadata word, all of this has to be done manually. You look at the errors, you literally profile them, you find value distribution counts, value frequencies and everything, and you try to group your errors. So now this is active metadata. As soon as you got your errors, right, you profile them. Data profiles are metadata, right? All the statistics. And based on the statistics, you are dividing them into the groups. And because those groups they are not like something that happen all the time, no, they are something that actually happen all the time because it's a repeatable process. Somebody did something, etc. So in the future, you could set up your line that, hey, if you find this particular group, this is the automated cleansing routines that you could apply to your group. So think about it. The data checks themselves and the data fix themselves. It's like beautiful. The other use cases we could talk about, data observability and everything, but the other thing is like how we could manage the data lifecycle. So think about it: data created, data ingested, stored somewhere, right? Processed, analyzed, sharing it, usage, and archiving and disposal. Typical data lifecycle stages. on every single stage, metadata is collected and they are managed somehow and they are used. So use case, let's say you're supposed to get rid of data, and that's actually, I believe, California act after a certain number of months or years when the user asks you to delete it. So there is a time limit. You can't actually even store those data for your usage. You have to delete them. So you can create the active process where you mark your data with the timestamp, and when this timestamp runs out to this thing, the data are automatically deleted. So it does help you to keep with compliance. So the whole GDPR and CCPA are excellent use cases for active metadata management, because we are talking about access, data sharing, and we are talking about disposal and archiving. So literally that's one of the cases. The other one, what I like, I just actually put some of the data governance use cases. If you think about active metadata, you can get rid of tons of data. So first of all, you could collect the metadata, how often the particular data asset was accessed, right? Whether it was sitting down, no one is never ever runs any query on it, versus the other one has like tons of query in it run. So when you create the statistics, how much each data table, data, whatever set is used, then you can literally automatically delete the ones that you are not using, and you're saving on storage and all other stuff, right? This one is one of my favorite cases, pipeline optimization, because you can collect basically runtime metrics from data processing engines and from all kind of metrics, and then you can monitor the peak access periods for your tools, and you can track frequently updated assets, and you can identify slow running queries, and you can spot time consuming jobs, and like when something is wrong, usually it's like one piece that matters. And then you can scale resources based on your peak time, and you can do it like literally in real time. When everybody needs this BI tool, then hey, you scale up your resources. You can adjust the frequency for like reprocessing frequency, update frequency for the data that are not used that often, because apparently no one cares. You can, in a sense, optimize resources usage through the processing schedule. So that's not particularly data quality, but to me, it's very much data governance use case. Of course, if you're detecting the data quality somewhere and you cannot fix it right away, you must inform users that there might be something wrong in a particular report. So you might feed this information into a report and put like the asterisk saying, hey, we are thinking that there is something else going on. We are researching, so use this particular field, with care. We talked about the data access. We talked about the compliance and everything. So the only thing we haven't talked about is the data observability, which is very much active metadata, but it's a larger topic. Yeah.
For sure. No, I think these are all really good, rich examples of where active metadata can be utilized for day-to-day data operations, as well as managing data on the data governance front. Um, so one of the areas that we wanted to go deeper on, since it's your expertise, is data quality. And something that I actually hear a lot about data quality, especially more recently, is that first and foremost, it's not just the freshness, uniqueness, and the number of rows ingested. They are part of metrics that feeds into data quality, but there's also the qualitative side of data quality. And regardless, the most important part around data quality, in order for it to actually act and work really well, it has to be more operationalized. So maintaining and also making a decision of, is this a notification that we send to downstream users? Is this something that we alert, and who? And how what is the part where we said that we make more than just an alert to the owners today. And one of the parts that you had on your slide was the segment around root cause analysis. This is an area that I would say currently, and rightfully so, a place where engineers end up spending a lot of time because they have to fix the issue. It's a product issue on the data. Things are broken, and it might be not just having the dashboard down, but also impacting revenue because it's closely related to a machine learning model that feeds the external customers. Do you believe that root cause analysis is, and how can it be actually done or solved by active metadata management?
Wow, that's a good question. So, first of all, root cause analysis it's a technique, and it was designed to be done manually. But as I said, usually when you see the many records, right? Like I talked about the groups. You are grouping them into the thing, and this group could have a certain characteristics that you can teach machine to recognize based on the metadata, so that machine can think. But what it can do, it recognize your thinking and perform the same actions as you told the machine to do. Let give you an example. So let's say you have hire date for many employees set up to some kind of date like 1 whatever 1970. You simply cannot believe that 100,000 of employees have exactly the same date. It's just not possible, right? It's like too much. Then you start digging up and you realize that, hey, that's this date is actually coincide with some kind of acquisition date. And when they brought those employees to the company, they didn't know the real hire date, so they defaulted everything to the acquisition date. So with that said, so you already found the root cause, right? The root cause was those guys didn't know anything, etc. So now what you could say, every time you find some discrepancies about the hire date, you can ask machine to figure out whether it's exactly the same root cause, because of the, basically now you're saying, hey, this is a cluster of employees. They have exactly the same other characteristics, like they come from the same division, same department, etc. They have maybe same management or whatever. It's not this particular field, but it's the fields that are around this date, around this hire date that matters. And based on that, the machine, the active metadata could be used to define, hey, it's exactly the same situation. It's probably no one was knowing. So now we just need to figure out what's the correct day to do it. So, and you could alert, let's say, I don't know, like HR department and say, hey, where can we get it? Or whatever, that the person who's responsible. So yes, you could do that. But machine cannot do, in my opinion, root cause analysis. Machine
Right.
can
It can give you all the active metadata that
exactly.
is around that specific issue.
Yeah.
Obviously, it cannot confirm what is the actual root cause, but
Yeah.
can give you all the information that you need to solve your root cause or to identify your root cause in minutes rather than hours.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
this
other
is
thing,
something.
actually, I just
Go
thought
ahead.
about another example. Hold on, I'll just find this slide here, maybe right in here. Okay. So let's say we are talking about data observability, and data observability is just basically the vendors are saying, hey, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to create data quality rules. We will create for you automatically all these rules. We will run them. We will tell you all the alerts and stuff, right? And then you go to this data quality tool, and you see that there are like 5 or 6 pages of alerts every day on all those different metrics. and you literally just looking at what I'm supposed to do. Am I supposed to go through all of this, like every day? I don't have a manpower. So now this is what the active metadata comes in. So all these observability reports, they have very simple thing. They have a predicted metric based on the past behavior, and they have actual metric. And they also have a minimum and maximum kind of like metrics where your metrics usually comes in, right? So you have a predicted one and you have an actual. Now, what you could do, you could calculate tons of other statistics about this metric. For example, the deviation and deviation orders and probability. So in a sense, what you want to do, you want to somehow find the metrics that are more out of whack than the rest of them and literally take care of those metrics first based on some other active metadata that you could attach to your error reports and everything. So it helps you manage your resources. It helps you. Data quality is expensive and very time consuming and resource consuming. So you literally want to do as little as possible. So active metadata helps you to find those very little pieces of how you could do it. So yeah, that's
Yeah, for
kind of.
sure. I think this is definitely a lot of where modern observability players are currently, operating on. They do that anomaly detection, try to see whether this is an usual error, something that has happened in the past, or if this is something completely new. I would also add another example around this. I would say this profiling is certainly important, especially if you have a lot of data coming from user input data. And this is like, if you have different documents and things that, in a way, like people fill out forms and it's
Mhm.
not perfect. And you may want to prep that data before it goes into more rigid structure, like in a relational data warehouse. So I think this is where it can be really helpful of doing that checks, like sanity checks and quality checks. The other example that I was thinking about is about actual metadata management and metadata changes. And when I say metadata changes, I'm talking about all the ETL changes or the schema changes that may happen throughout the life cycle of data. Today,
Mhm.
so many companies and teams have hundreds of or more, it's hundreds is like a minimum, uh, of their transformation models. And as data is getting democratized more, there are different analysts and analytics engineers that will continuously create different models that are on top of one another. So, what we saw a lot with our customers is that there are changes either on the product side, the digital product side, or somewhere on the source data that have impacts to the um, downstream reporting tables
Mhm.
or different models. And the data itself is completely fine. And you could maybe get this information out if you were to monitor profiling of every single model, every single downstream model. But that also is very expensive. The
Mhm.
easier, faster way to check this out is to monitor which schema changes are happening throughout the pipeline. So if you know that this code that does this transformation has been recently modified, and if you can highlight those throughout your lineage chain, when you say, oh, this data looks a little bit off, you can easily spot that this is the part of the pipeline that has been updated recently.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so we should take a look into that.
Yes,
And these profiling on that perspective is also super helpful because you may be able to spot which part of the code, which part of the calculation has changed that impacts the end results.
absolutely. Yeah.
So yeah, I think both are really important and very like a focused use case for active metadata management for sure. Uh, I just realized that we are like already 40 minutes in. So want to make sure that I can also cover all the questions that I had for you.
All
Um,
right.
um, I would love to talk a little bit more about the tactics and strategy that you have practiced and seen around fostering a culture of data quality across your organization. One thing that I hear a lot is that many times, especially around data governance, it's not just the tool, it's not just the center of excellence or the CDO that is driving this. You need help from everyone, your data stewards, different domain experts that are all in different departments. They don't necessarily always talk to each other, but you're bringing all of them onto the table to be able to have more hybrid, more decentralized way of sharing this responsibility of maintaining a good data quality. What are some of the things that are important that, in your opinion, when you're trying to foster this culture of data quality across organization?
Well, first of all, I am a big fan of data literacy movement. And some people might like or might not like, the word literacy, literate or versus illiterate,
Can
but
you explain what you see as, or how you define the data literacy movement?
in a sense, there are two ways. I actually define it on the individual level and on the organizational level. On the individual level, data literacy is knowing as much about data that helps you to do your job, not your neighbor job, not somebody else's job, like your job. So if you need to know something, how to do it, this is how you do it. Now, I also define difference between knowing the tools versus knowing the basics. So to me, being able to have like data visualization literacy does not mean that you know Tableau, Click, or anything else. To me, it is knowing what exactly you how to do it. So the next time when you are forced to do something visualization, it's not you saying, okay, what do I do, what do I press? Your question will be, okay, I want to do this, how do I do it? Same thing with data quality tool, right? When some people asking me, do you know this tool or do you know this tool, my answer is they all the same. Right? Because I know what I want to do to create rule to do this. So to me, it's not the question, uh, you know how do I use this tool? But to me, it's the question, how do I do the task that I wanted to do with this particular tool? So when I talk data literacy, it's absolutely vendor agnostics and industry agnostics. So this individual literacy helps you out. Now, who needs to have it? My very broad definition is if person works with Excel, if person creates data or give data to someone else, then this is a candidate for data literacy. Now, the extent of data literacy could be different. You might need to know this much or this much or this much. It depends on the role. And there got to be a program set up that would administer your assessment things. And basically, if you pass those assessments on your level, you're good to go. If you don't have to spend and learn everything because you already know half of the things, right? You just know little things. Now, organizational data literacy is something that you can calculate based on your, individual results. And you can say, hey, all my data modelers have data literacy that they need, or all my data engineers have the data literacy that they need, etc. Or you can say, hey, this team that works on this particular initiative is also, have data literacy level that are needed for this particular initiative, etc. So you could literally divide people by either roles or by teams or by, segments of business or line of business or anything like that. So this is how you literally do it. And it starts simple. You just learn and like different things. And to me, data literacy is not about data visualizations. um, it's definitely much more than that. Data literacy is understanding why every single person need to participate in data quality and data governance initiative, and not to say, hey, I don't have time for you to help you in your data quality resolution. So if you have someone pushing back on you, helping with the, with whatever you're doing for the data quality, that means the data literacy in the organization is very, very low. So you have to work on that with classes, and the things have to start at the top. Like literally, you can't just, rely on people conscious. And in my opinion, I also think that money always talks. So if you can have rewards set up for people who go through this data literacy programs, and rewards could be $10 Starbucks card, or maybe the T-shirt with the company logo, or the coffee mug, or it could be as simple as, what, if you achieve that and you rank some kind of like points, you can have some kind of a gamification thing. You can have like lunch with the leadership or something like that. There are different ways to stimulate it, but I'm a firm believer that you have to have not just stick but a carrot. People literally, you can't just rely that then the collective things all of a sudden they start learning. So
That's great. So let's say if I am in charge of building a data literacy program for my company. My company has 5 different domains. Each domain has their own 1 or 2 data analysts. We already have number of domain stakeholders that are already using BI tools, but not necessarily everyone is doing their own analysis. They might be just consuming dashboards. So in this case, how would you structure and design a data literacy program for the organization?
yeah, I would, as I said, you need to build up. So basically, there are classes, right? And there are 2 ways to do it. You can put all your classes yourself, or you could buy them elsewhere. I'd say that the best way is to buy them from a vendor, but then work with the vendor, work internally, and you have to customize those classes. Let me give you an example. Let's say the class is talking about databases, different types of databases. They say, this is this type, this is this type, etc. What the customized class is to say, hey, what are the different type of databases that you are using in your work? Or, for example, the class is telling you about different storages, different data warehouses and data lakes, etc. So the class has to be customized. Hey, we have this data lake, and in order to access this data lake, this is what you do. So there gotta be pages how to relate what general things the data literacy class is talking about to how it applies to your company. So or for example, if you're discussing some kind of metrics for your report, you can say, hey, we do have Tableau, and this is example of report where this thing is used. So you absolutely have to bring what people care about to this education. Otherwise, it's not really effective. It's too theoretical, and people just can't relate to that.
Yeah, in a way, I feel like one part that data literacy classes and a lot of the like a data training classes miss is this applicability to the
Mm-hmm.
day-to-day use of the user. And when I
Mm-hmm.
say day-to-day use, it's not like we are expecting them to run, complete
Mm-hmm.
analysis. What I'm
Mm-hmm.
talking about is for them to be able to actually apply their understanding of the business
Mm-hmm.
with the data model that has been already structured inside the
Absolutely.
company. So if this is on one area that I would say all data teams already do a lot of training on, especially when they hire a new data analyst. There is
Mm-hmm.
going to be some type of a high level
Mm-hmm.
understanding of this is how our customer data is structured. This is
Mm-hmm.
how we calculate our active users or revenue. And
Absolutely.
here are the pipelines that feeds those. And
Mm-hmm.
that whole process, that business process that's been implemented underneath the data warehouse and the BI tools, like that understanding, I feel like is really the core around data literacy because
Mm-hmm.
I see also a lot of like business users that are actually quite technical. they are like amazing experts in Excel. They
Mhm.
can really analyze. They will ask really good questions. But they may not just understand exactly how the data flew into the system and
Mhm.
how it's been transformed. So this is like one area that I wish the data literacy programs
Mhm.
cover more.
Yes, and also I think because I create classes and I do know how much work it is to create one class. It's literally if I have to like narrate the slide of 5 minutes, it's probably like 5 hours of work. So I truly believe that creating the general classes, it's not productive for the company to spend
Right.
time on. Just buy it and then build on top of the one that you already bought. So to me, that's the most effective. The other thing, what I would do, I would also divide all people in all roles into three categories or two categories, but basically kind of like data dependent and they basically the one who use data occasionally versus the one who use data like live blood, and create different classes or different kind of like programs for those two groups. So there are many ways to divide people, and I truly think that you do need to have a data literacy administrator, the person who is passionate about this program. And because it's a lot of time, you don't want to teach people the things that they already know. So it is basically
Right.
take, you have to assess person on the meet person where he is right now, and then give this person some extra. Don't force him to take the classes, the stuff, he'll just gonna click click click. It's just waste of time. So
For
that's another
sure.
important thing. You have to meet people, and you have to see where those people want to go, how they want to kind of like reuse the things. Yeah. And
Okay.
another thing is, I also think that HR person has to be responsible for the data literacy, not person within the data. So it's a job of HR manage human resources, right? It's unless HR is involved, unless learning management is involved, data literacy program is not going to go anywhere. It will stay within the data governance office, and it's not going to be effective. So
Yeah, I hear you. It's almost like if you join a new company, you got to understand what the company's business is like, how
yes.
they generate revenue, who their customers are, and how the company operates. And that it is data in a way closely reflect how the company's business runs and where it gets like it's almost like codifies
Mhm.
the operation of the business, and hence it is a I would say this is I feel like where data literacy, like it's not just about really data, it's really about the understanding
Mhm.
of the business that should be really the goal here.
Yes. Uh,
um
I say data engineers need business literacy.
Business literacy, yes, that
Business
is very
literacy.
true too. On the other hand, we do want to make sure
Yes.
that yeah, everyone that is implementing these pipelines also have a good understanding of what happens in the
Mhm.
business. Otherwise, there's a lot of back and forth for sure. Um, you mentioned about some monetary rewards, something that helps that encourage people to
Mhm.
do this. I'm wondering whether, like, in terms of like gamification and the incentive structure that you put in, if you can share any examples that you have seen in the past that has led to a successful outcome of data literacy.
Well, as I said, one of them, I don't know many companies who actually doing it, but one company had a bonus pool. And
Hmm.
because the thing is, if the company is saying, hey, your job as a trader just to close up the trades, your job as a insurance seller just sell the insurance or whatever, and those people are not incentivized to put all this data accurately because they are not using, they don't care about it, it's just analysts afterward, like many steps down the line. So to prevent the basically incorrect data entry, you have to incentivize those people somehow. And one of the company literally had a bonus pool, and then when they run data quality, they could trace the data who created those data, and the person who created the best data actually would be recipient of a bigger portion of the bonus pool. So literally it everyone would win. It wasn't like that much of a money, but this was pretty effectively. Now several other rewards, I think, non-monetary, such as meeting the leadership and everything, if you are doing participating in like data stewardship activities or helping to resolve data quality rules, etc. This is also very important reward for people who want to build a career. Now, for people who don't want to build a career, that of course it doesn't work, right? But that's why I said the $10 Starbucks cards is excellent, right? So all the merchandise.
Yeah, I think gathering a lot of different people that had really, I guess, not as much interaction with data, those will be a good place to initially spark their interest. Other examples that I've seen in companies to foster this is just initially having part of their onboarding of the company to include like this understanding of overall data model and introduction to them on how to utilize their like a data catalog or documentation system. Almost like you get access to wiki. Here is where you can search and understand anything about data. Here are and regarding this, I think one thing that has worked well with a lot of our customers is doing like a little bit of a data trivia. So for the data team and also for people that are new on this, there you can have them to do almost like a scavenger hunt within the ecosystem to
Oh.
understand, different parts of the data. Like if I were to look for like where can I find customers in this region? Like you have to put like a little like you have to look around the
Uh-huh.
catalog to find that tool. So from that perspective, you end up learning how to use the tool to find
Mhm.
information, which
Mhm.
leads them to also come back to the tool to ask further questions about data.
That's very important because unfortunately, data catalogs they suffer from very low adoption. And even if they are pretty well populated, people I still prefer ask someone where do I find the data rather than to go to the catalog and do it. And I just don't know how to. I mean, I'm trying in every single company I worked for. I'm trying more and more for that. So far, I haven't figured out how to make people to use it.
Yeah, I think this is an area that I've given also a lot of thought about because this is the initial challenge that we have faced with a lot of our customers. But now we've done like many of the iterations of how we are onboarding users. I have a lot of thought on this. Maybe this can be another talk, but definitely happy to share more with you on
I'd
such a
love to. I
talk.
have some other idea how AI could help with that, but as I said, we are probably out of time. So,
Yeah. I guess like one last quick question for you. You have spent a lot of your industry expertise, your last 20 years or so in the data space. Now, there's so much happening in this industry today. Things are changing very quickly. How do you keep up to date with the latest changes and staying, present with the new ways and tips and tricks in the industry?
well, honestly, I'm a subscriber to O'Reilly. I read probably a couple books per week. I mean, when I say read, at least I glance through them, what they are about.
They're too honest here. You can say.
Uh, I actually was an active LinkedIn user until recently. For some reason, I just decided to give it a try. And LinkedIn is a little bit of an echo chamber, but at the same time, everything new that pops up, like the new term, sometimes I see like post, and to me, it's as much as written down in some kind of language I don't understand. But what helps me rather than just scrolling down is to literally go and Google some of the terms and see what it is. So to me, that's the way I generally go if I'm hearing someone is saying something and I don't understand this word, what they are saying. Apparently, this is something new, some new technology, and you can just go. And I often go to the conferences, and usually on the conferences there would be like one or two people talking about the new things. So again, but you have to have an effort doing that. I typically during my drives or when I walk in the garden, I'm listening podcasts and all other things just to keep it true. But it is amazing. You can't know everything, but it's interesting where the data management is right now. So.
Amazing. Well, thanks so much for your time today, Olga.
Thank you.
I
Thank
really
you.
enjoyed the chat, and I can't wait to push this out in our blog post soon. So thanks everyone for joining us today. I'm looking forward to my next chat again. So thank you, Olga, again, and have a good
Thank you.
weekend.
Bye.
Bye.